So I think one of the biggest challenges actually is if you look at discovery. So discovery has always been hard in podcasts. First of all, for listeners to discover podcasts, because if you think about TV, for example, now, the way we consume TV, there's all these different apps. It's quite fragmented, whether it's, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Now, whatever. It's quite hard. There's no one central place like in the olden days. I say the olden days, but when you used to have like a Sky, like an EPG on Sky, there is no EPG guide for podcasts. You can't just flick on something and see all the podcasts in the world. So that's been hard. And therefore, if that's hard for listeners, it's also hard for advertisers. I would say in terms of knowing like what podcasts are out there and where to put their money. And what that has meant is that invariably you get that effect where the biggest, most famous, the biggest sort of, I suppose, either celebrity or brand-led podcasts have been the target for advertisers. So actually, we at Acast have been trying to change that and actually encourage advertisers to think more in terms of audience first. Because if you think about it, if there's all these podcasts in the world, even if they've got 100 listens, 100,000 listens, whatever, those are incredibly engaged listeners, which advertisers are going to want to reach. So I would say one thing that we're trying to encourage is for advertisers to think more about buying audience first and enabling them to do that. So to think, who am I trying to reach? And actually finding those podcasts, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 50 different podcasts through which they're going to be able to reach them. That was a really quick answer to a really big question. But I think that discovery is one of the biggest challenges for sure. So many. I would say the advertisers that are getting it right in general are those who are really understanding the space and really pushing the limits of its creativity and its potential. Because if you think about it, podcasting is such a young medium compared to a lot of the other channels out there. Right. And so there's still a lot of evolution happening. There's still so much excitement and potential to try new things. So I would say the podcasters that are testing and learning constantly are the ones who are really doing it right. I mean, everyone in podcasting will know BetterHelp, because BetterHelp, the online therapy service, is the biggest spender globally on podcast advertising around the world. But it's because it's working for them, and it's working for them for so many reasons. First of all, podcasting as a medium being so engaging, being so trustworthy, but also BetterHelp really tests and learn. So they really sort of try working with different podcasts who match with their values or match with the audiences they're trying to reach, but they're constantly testing, right, is that working? How could we optimize what they're doing? Are there different podcasts we need to try? So I would say that's a really good example. And then in terms of pushing boundaries, there's brands that we at Acast work with, for example, like WhatsApp. So, we've worked with WhatsApp, who want to really push about their privacy features to users. So we've done some really creative campaigns with our podcasters using both their podcast, but also their social channels, where we've sort of had some fun with that and got them to expose some of their biggest secrets to sort of flip it on its head. So I'd say any brand that is willing to try something creative is who's really doing well in podcasting at the minute. Yeah, so I think there's a few different areas. I think from a content trend point of view, I think that we're seeing a massive rise in mental health based podcasts, right? The world, we all know, has been through a lot in recent years, and podcasting is really emerging as a brilliant environment to either inform people, educate people, or just help people. So I think we're going to see a rise, not just in advertising, but in terms of actual content, of more podcast geared towards helping people tackle mental health challenges. I also think news is a massive trend. Like the way we consume news is changing rapidly. Podcasts, daily briefing podcasts, daily news podcasts are such an important part now of the news cycle. And I think that's going to be particularly important in 2024, because we're going to go through 2 major election cycles, both in the UK and in the US. And so offering that sort of nuance and information around elections, I think, is going to be big for podcasting. But when it comes to podcast advertising, I do think our old friend, I can't not have an interview without saying the word AI, as you've said. AI is going to have massive effects in a positive way for podcasting, both in terms of, saving time in the actual podcast creation process, AI tools that can help podcasters save time on a lot of the admin so that they can focus more on the actual creating side. And also it's already, you know, having a massive effect on how we as Acast can create our even more effective advertising. So, you know, we're using AI and machine learning to create better targeting tools for advertisers, to, you know, help our brand safety efforts, and just sort of, you know, make the all-round experience better for everyone. So I think that is a trend that you can't get away from, obviously.